So hello, welcome back to Today I Am Talking To, and today we are talking to Andi Rella,
Hey.
who is an amazing singer, musician, all the awesome things. And so yeah, we're gonna jump right in. Hello, Andi.
Oh man, what an introduction. Hey.
So starting out with like a fun question, I feel like musicians are always like, oh my god, it's the this era, it's the that era, it's this era. What like era do you think you're in?
My survival era. No, I think pop punk is coming back. I want to be my Avril era. That's where I'm going. I'm doing a lot of Paramore live. I'm fueling my inner child these days. It's great.
I am upset. I was literally talking to someone. It's like pop punk is fully making a return.
Oh, fully.
Like the biggest. You're totally giving off pop punk Avril Lavigne vibes.
Thank
so,
you.
Like, kind of done a great job.
That's the biggest compliment.
But also it's so interesting because the music that's really happening right now is so like Avril Lavigne came back and like re-released her first album.
She did, and MGK is bringing it back. I don't know how to feel, but
I don't know how to feel, but it's happening.
It's definitely happening, and it's strong. And these TikTok kids, they're coming back with pop punk. It's great.
Absolutely,
you know?
And you are very much a big part, or a coming up part of it, and it's going to be very big very soon.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So, now you're in your Avril Lavigne era. We love it. You started your first song came out, I believe, in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That was Personal.
Yeah.
Not that it was like the song, like, you could talk about how personal or not it was, but it was called Personal.
Yeah.
So what was the moment that you decided to release that? What was getting into that like for you?
So, before that, I was releasing like kind of YouTube beat stuff on SoundCloud and, figuring things out on my own. But then I figured out you could just put music on all platforms by yourself with a distribution website, and I was like, oh hell yeah, like I'm gonna do this myself. So I made one song with a producer that I actually knew from high school, and we collabed and we made that song, and that was like the catalyst for my first EP, which is The After Party. And yeah, it wasn't personal, it was saying don't take it personal. But yeah, that was how it all began.
Yeah. And I know that you're saying the producer you worked with on that you knew from high school, and I know you've also, we'll get there soon, but yeah, you've collaborated with other people you've known from other parts of your life. I think it's super interesting to see when people are coming up in such significant ways, how much they actually end up going back to the network that they've been building for so long. So how have you found that that's been a significant part of it for you? Is there anything you'd say to that?
Oh yeah, it's crazy because so his name is Brandon. We went to school together. He was a year older. We were both in like the arts department, but kind of mutual friends, not really close. But he saw what I was doing on SoundCloud, and he was kind of figuring out his stuff. He was doing like more EDM, like producing, and he was like, hey, let me remix one of your songs, and like that kind of how we had a SoundCloud song kind of out. But then he was living in Atlanta, and he's like, come out to Atlanta and let's like record some stuff. So that happened, and now a lot of artists that I'm collaborating with, I knew back in the day that was also like kind of making music and like whatever. So all of these people that I grew up with being artsy with ended up being the people that I'm working with now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. It is so wild because everyone puts this emphasis on being like, oh, you have to like get out there and network, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you've been networking your whole life.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
I went to Arizona completely gone and forever, and I thought I was going to make, all the connections out there. But I came home and I was like, no, all my people are here, like, yes. And they are talented, like, totally. I need to work with them.
It kind of goes to show logic-wise, it's like, oh, you're talented, and if you grew up here, it probably means you were surrounded by talented people, and you're all feeding off of each other all of the time.
Yeah, the area, I think, is something in the water. There's a lot of talent in Lower Westchester.
It's true. Actually, what's funny is the last person, or actually 2 interviews ago, I was talking to a stand-up comedian who is also from Rye, New York.
There you go.
There we go. But speaking of, I know you from community theater, and then I know that you went to school, correct me if I'm wrong, but for, I believe you were majoring in choreography at the time. Is that wrong?
I did change my major a couple times. I wanted to go to school to be a normal person at first, because I was like, arts is hard, and you have a lot of people in your ear that are like, have a backup plan or do whatever. So I tried, and then I was like, I cannot put pencil to paper ever again. So I started doing dance, and, I went back to, like, music stuff, and then I just ended up coming back home because I was like, music is the only thing I'm really good at. So I'm like, I gotta keep doing this. But yeah.
Which is, I know from life that you're great at many things, but also, how do you think that, like, the theater and dance background, like, how do you think that led into music? And also, what was the moment that you were like, no, I'm gonna full send it on music? I know you kind of touched upon that just now. But.
Yeah, I switched my major like 6 times, and I was like, none of this is really clicking with me. The only thing that I've ever been consistent with my whole entire life. I mean, my dad was like an Italian rock star back in the day. He had like a #1 hit in Italy. It was a big deal. I have pictures of me like playing piano and singing, and I have like CDs of me at 2 years old, like making up songs and whatever. In theater, like, I think it really helped me like develop a stage presence and all of that stuff. So now getting on stage and doing my own shows, it feels kind of natural because I've just been doing that basically my whole life. So.
Absolutely. And also what's interesting is I think the theater sound is so different from, like, the musical theater sound is so different from the sound you have now. Like, how did you find your sound? I don't know if I'm asking that question right.
That's a good question, because that was my biggest struggle, because I was always like, I don't want to write theater songs. Like, and sometimes I do. Like, sometimes I'll sit down on the piano and I'll write like a ballad, and I'm like, this sounds too. I was going Sarah Bareilles, but it's now, theater. It's very Broadway. And so there is a balance. But I also felt like when I was in theater, my voice wasn't as, projecty theater vibes. So that's kind of why I felt like maybe I wasn't right for Broadway.
Broadway.
But I love to sing, so I feel like this was the natural order of things.
Yeah, and from personal through Come and Get Me, I believe the name of the song. Come Get Me. Mm-hmm. Your sound really has evolved so much, and it's gotten so clean and sharp, and it's really giving off that, like, Avril Lavigne, Billie Eilish vibes. Like, it flows right in so well. What has that is that something that you've been noticing as you've been going through creating this music, or is it something that you've kind of grown and then you look back and you're like, oh, I've changed and I didn't realize it was happening?
No, I was actively trying to progress. I think a lot of it had to do with working with a lot of talented producers. Again, Brandon, my producer, we really spent a lot of time in the studio. We had a studio that we were able to use at our disposal, which we were blessed to have, and we were just there every single day, 10 a.m., 10 p.m., like, just working on music, making random sounds, like, seeing what works, like, getting better at our craft. Like, I was producing, like, learning the ins and outs of engineering and all this stuff, so just, I guess, learning, like, and listening to a lot of music and getting inspired by a lot of music, and it was just, you try to beat out your last song.
Yeah.
But looking back, I used to be like, oh, like, those are my old songs, I don't want to listen to them. But now, like, being more detached from them, I'm like, okay, she knew where she was going. She's a baby, but she knew where she was going.
No, absolutely. And it really does sound that way, because the songs are all great. You just do hear, like, the difference in, like, oh, the producing. And it's interesting how it is such a, I don't want to say learning by doing, because I think it discredits how great your early stuff is as well, because it really is excellent. But there is something to say about being like, oh, you're going to know what's happening when you're in the moment and you're working through it. And then suddenly the quality is up here and now you're doing this thing. Speaking of also learning by doing, the music videos you've been putting out are so high quality. Like, they're really excellent. So has that also been self-produced? Like, what have been, like, challenges you found through that?
Yeah, that's actually very challenging, especially these days when visual and video is like a major thing for advertising your music or putting it out there because people want to see visuals. So I really have been looking for really talented videographers and stuff, and I have been blessed to work with a couple different ones. My most recent one for my most recent album, Best You Ever Had, the title single, we actually did myself with my producer and my engineer. We just got a really nice camera, and I had this vision of a car and a trash can fire and all this crazy stuff, and so we drove this rental car into, this is maybe illegal, and we drove it into the woods and did this whole thing, and I realized I'm very picky about the shots and how I look in shots and stuff like that. So I was like, maybe if I just do it myself and edit it myself, I'll be happiest. And so, honestly, it came out really well. It came out exactly how I had it in my head. So I've always thought if you want something done right, you should do it yourself. But that does make you wear a lot of hats. So
I
kind of hard.
completely agree. And then sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm wearing so many hats. Why did I take all these hats? But then at the end, it's like, no, because I'm trying to build this exact product the way I see it.
I need it. And no shade to the other people that I've worked with. They are absolutely amazing. The other music videos that I've made are amazing. But there are always shots where I'm like, oh, I would have picked a different one, or I don't like the way I look here, or like whatever. But if I'm hands-on, I can make everything exactly how I wanted it to be, and that's a little bit of my OCD coming out, but
No, I completely get it. And also, you're talking about the specific way, like, you look on camera, which are all things that in a very image-based industry makes a lot of sense. And it is very important. And you, as an independent artist, a lot of what you do is very homegrown. That doesn't mean it's not high quality, but it's you putting it on yourself. So outside of the creative realm, how have you found that have you found that you had to do work with like branding and marketing yourself? Or like, how has that really changed the way you do things? Is it intentional?
Yeah, so when I'm writing an album or a song, I kind of create this universe in my world, like in my mind, this like the colors, the vibe. Like my last album, I was seeing very space, very blues and green purples. Like my cover I shot with like LED lights in the back. I was wearing this like space outfit, like I made it in like a spaceship window. I was seeing just very, I don't know, atmospheric vibes. So as I was making the songs, I was seeing like the visuals that I wanted to go along with it. So the photo shoots and the branding and the teasers and the videos that I was going to make through it. It was all in my head while I was making the songs. So the branding kind of comes along with just how I feel when I'm making the songs. But yeah.
Interesting. And so you were also talking, just to focus on the business side, because I think it's so interesting to talk to people who work in arts about that side of it as well, because I think people are like, oh, look at them, creative, amazing, good for you, off we go. But there's so much work that goes into every part of it. It's genuinely exhausting. It is so many hats. We were speaking a little before, and you mentioned that you have a booking agent that helps get you shows in the city. As somebody who does not do music, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are either interested, what does that mean? How do you do shows in the city? Or anywhere?
How to? A friend of mine was working with a booking agency that gets a bunch of independent artists together, and they really listen to their music and see their vibe and curate these shows that are going to have similar drawing, so similar audiences that are going to come together, which is really great because you'll, share fans after a while. You'll have a lot of people come up to you and be like, your set was like basically the music I listen to. What are you on Instagram? And you'll really like mix and mingle with those people that come out to those shows. So that's it's a really good situation to have. I would look into a booking agent or an agency. I use Gig Finesse. There's Breaking Sound. There's a couple different ones, but they have venues around the city that they have shows at, and they just throw a couple artists together and make a great show. So
amazing. And then you have so these shows out there. What would you say is the most important thing, or like some of the most important things that now looking back you're like, oh, I should have done this from like the jump, or but now that you're doing it you're like, this is so important but I wasn't doing it at first?
That's a good question.
It could be nothing. You could be like, I was doing everything perfectly from the minute I started
No,
producing
definitely
songs.
not. Definitely not. But maybe I just don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think just focusing, I hate to say it, the dirty word, TikTok. I need to currently, but I wish I did before as well, focus on, making specific content for TikTok. Because people, the fans are out there, and you just need to put your stuff in front of them, and that's the hardest part. But they're out there. If 10 people like your stuff, 1,000 people could like your stuff, you know what I mean? So you really need to get your stuff out there and make yourself, and put yourself in a position to be found by these people. And I think that's something that we all all creatives need to get on board with.
Yeah, absolutely. Days. I think that it's no shade to anyone who's trying to do creative work and is like, social media is not my thing, I'm not going to do it. But personally, I always think it's a little insane because I'm like, you are, in today's world, you're cutting yourself off from a literal world of people. And if you're not there, you're already behind.
Yeah.
It's like,
and they're looking for you. They're looking for you. There's so many people on TikTok specifically that want to find their new favorite artist, or they want to be the first person to find a song, or like they stumble across a song and it makes them feel something and they're like, when is this coming out, drop this or whatever, and then you have anticipation for a song that you just kind of threw up there. Like, you never know what's gonna hit, or so I think it's just important to put yourself out there, even though it's scary and you're scared of people in real life seeing you and stuff like that. Worst. So terrible. Yeah. I hate when people, I've been seeing you on TikTok. I'm like, oh, please. But strangers are great. Yeah. But yeah, putting yourself out there and getting over that embarrassment a little bit of, putting yourself on these apps.
Totally. And speaking of TikTok specifically, your music stuff on there, amazing. Clearly, very talented. Your most popular videos on TikTok are you poaching an egg in a microwave?
Okay, first of all, let's start this off by it wasn't a microwave at first.
Sorry.
I was very angry at all these chefs trying to gatekeep a perfect poached egg. It is not that hard. You don't need to do a little swirly thing. You don't need vinegar. You don't need to, have these gadgets or anything. You just have to use a strainer. You put your eggs in a strainer. There's a little, sack around the whites. It's not the whole white. And it gets all those little floaty white. I don't know if you've ever made a poached egg.
I can't say I have.
Really detailed.
No, I'm loving this. Please continue.
But all you have to do is strain it a little bit, and you throw it in some boiling water for 3 minutes, and you take it out, and it's a perfect poached egg. And that's it. Gordon Ramsay has 15-minute videos on how to do a perfect poached egg, and I was like, I'm sick of it. This is how you do it. And apparently 5 million people have learned how to do poached eggs and are very happy about it. But there are some people in the comments that are saying, oh, you're even doing it the hard way, too. You could even put it in the microwave, which I think microwaved eggs are cursed. But I tried it, and it didn't work. It was bad, it was rubbery, and people kept, in every video, they're like, oh, but you gotta do it for this amount of time. You gotta do it like this. And I tried every single one. None of them compare to the original hack. So
Wow.
that was my journey on poaching eggs.
A true expert. I'm sure you've heard that like 100 times.
No, and I wish I didn't.
Nice. I'm happy I could provide this for you in this moment.
What time is it?
But going back to, aside from obviously your phenomenal career as a chef, back to the music and talking about your songs and your work, have there been any comments from listeners or people who have been following your TikToks that you're like, wow, these people have found me, like I found my people, it lets me know I'm on the right track?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I think most of the reason why those videos went viral is because of my voice, like my accent, or like the way that I speak. They're like, she's so matter of fact. Where's this accent from? And people are like, you know, New York, New Jersey, Italian American, like stuff like that. Like people are so interested in how my voice sounds, which kind of made me self-conscious, but it's okay. But then there are people like responding like, you should hear her sing, and then that'll have people finding like the music on my TikTok, which is what it's really for.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people have been finding my music through that, and I think that's even more special for the audience because I'm not just showing up and being like, hey, I dropped a song, listen to it. They're finding it on their own, so it seems like more special to them that they are the ones that like found this song and they found this artist themselves. So it's like their little secret. Like
Totally.
so they have this like closeness to it. So I just think that's the coolest way to find my music.
That is so
through poaching
cool.
eggs, I guess.
And also, oh my gosh, wait, I'm going all the way back, I'm realizing, but I was going to ask what the coolest venue you've performed in is, which I guess we'll hear that question in a second, spoiler alert. But I know you were in Arizona, you said you produced your first song, I believe you said, down in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
How far have you traveled for music?
Not far, just Atlanta. I actually convinced the producer I was working with at the time to move from Atlanta back to New York so that we could work together more. Because we did start our own little record label, 914 Records, and we did a kind of a music festival at Garcia's in Port Chester, which is a huge, Capitol Theater. It's right next to Capitol Theater. It's huge, and we had a bunch of local artists come out and perform. We had like 300 people show up. It was really great to support like local artists. It was a lot of their first shows, and that's crazy to have their first show in front of over 300 people, and that was like a really cool thing that we were able to do. But wouldn't have happened if I didn't convince Brandon to come back to New York.
That is so powerful. You were literally like, you know what you should do? Move.
And it worked. And he's grateful. And
Yes.
he's grateful, I think.
I think that's also just such a testament to like how much the people, going back to the whole thing about building your network, like the people around you believe in what you're doing also. Mm-hmm. I think it just speaks very highly of your work. Yay, go Andy. But on a different note, what would you say is the weirdest or most interesting place you've ever performed? End of question.
The weirdest place. I don't know. There are a lot of little basement, like little grimy, no, I'm not going to name any places, but there are definitely some underground, the most literal way of saying underground artists. Like they're underground basement bars, but have the coolest turnout, have the coolest shows, which is great, but definitely weird to just find this little underground venue with like a tiny little stage and just packed with people that just want to listen to artists they have no idea about.
Yeah, it's such a cool music. Like, do you find that you have more recurring people coming back to see the shows you're on, or is it more new people? Or I know with having a lineup with multiple different bands on it, you end up having kind of a cross-contamination, for lack of a better word, of
that's
fans.
a good one.
Yeah, like different like people. So do you find you have more like return audiences, or is it really a mix of?
It's really a mix, and I love the people that come back, but it makes me super excited to stay after the show and talk to the people that came for maybe somebody else, or just off the street they saw a show was going on and they came in and they ended up staying because they liked what they heard and they got to talk, and we got to link on social medias and they follow me and maybe they'll come out to a show again. But that's the most special part of it, is finding these new people that come to the shows and we get to connect and stuff like that.
Yeah. Have you made any like friends of fans that have come to your show? Like,
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, so exciting.
Oh yeah. I've met photographer, like all like artistic people, mingle with each other and like we can all work together. Like I found a really cool photographer that does film. Her name is Ava, and she comes to all my shows now to just take really dope film pictures. She'll bring her friends too, and we're kind of like in this little group now. But yeah, it's just really cool to meet new creatives that just like music and art, and we mix.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. Well, is there anything else social media-wise that you need to plug? Anything you want to promote?
Oh, man. Well, my social medias are Andi Rella on Instagram, Arels on TikTok if you want to see me poach some eggs. I hope
they're really high-quality videos. I'm not even kidding.
I really hope I won't be poaching any more eggs, but we'll see where it takes me. But, yeah. Stay tuned for more music, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
talking to me.
you.
Oh my gosh, this is so great. Yay.